Students, Mr. Williams back here with our third subsection here of Section 12, the Stagnant 1970s. The American response to this economic downturn, to this financial turmoil that many Americans individually and many American businesses were experiencing by the middle portion of the 1970s. As we alluded to in our previous subsection, the catalytic event, the Arab oil embargo of 1973, kind of got the ball rolling, per se, in regards to this economic spiral, this downturn, this avalanche. But there were several issues from previous years of decision-making and activity that were finally, for the most part, unearthed or uncovered and laid bare, all right, for observation by the American public. We had effectively, assisted in the production of viable competitors on the international stage, and we had fallen behind, all right, in regards to efficiency, in regards to methods of production, production costs, and after we see a drastic spike in the overall cost to produce and to distribute, we've got to start cutting in other areas. I say we as in, business in general, the American economy in general. We got to start cutting in other areas so we can continue to make our business work, all right? Things don't go well, though, okay? Things don't go well, though. That energy crisis is so substantial. All right, it's so substantial that it actually causes several sectors of the American economy to just basically close up shop. And this is when we start seeing the Great Lakes region effectively become the Rust Belt, an area where there was a lot of manufacturing hubs, areas where a lot of your automobile makers called home. They effectively have to change course, drastically adjust their operations, close down many plants, many shops, and lay off many workers. Hence, the Rust Belt creating this area of vacated land that no longer was a vibrant, robust location for business. The era of the gas-guzzling vehicle is gone, okay? Again, the energy crisis just didn't affect fuel, all right? We're talking about heating homes. We're talking about production and distribution of those goods and services. All those things were greatly affected because of the increase in fuel prices. The big three car companies, for example, were so caught off guard that they had no idea how to all of a sudden compete in the American marketplace with some of these foreign invaders. This is when you have Toyota, Honda, Datsun, all right, now Nissan, basically flood into the American market with these small, efficiently made quality products that were fuel saving. We actually have some of the car companies, i.e. Chrysler, have to declare bankruptcy and get a federal loan, get a bailout from the national government. And this isn't like what we're seeing today with the large stimulus bill. In comparison to today's situation, we effectively voluntarily and through government mandate shut our economy down, okay? We were told or voluntarily just stopped business. Hence why the government is providing American citizens and some businesses available funds to basically, bridge the gap between what we were doing to when we can start doing it again. However, in the late 1970s, in the mid-1970s, some of these businesses that were going under and asking for government bailouts effectively were going under because of their own doing, not because of government mandate or voluntary activity. So completely different situation than what we currently have, but there are some parallels in a sense. So the American response is effectively, oh crap, we are way behind the times. All right, we are way behind the times. These other vibrant economies that we have effectively assisted in building up over the last couple of decades have surpassed us, and we never effectively forecasted or prepared for a significant change in some of those variables that effectively alter our bottom line. i.e. fuel costs, right? Production costs. So with the enormous swell in the price to produce and distribute all these goods and services, i.e. the Arab oil embargo and now the skyrocketing prices in fuel, that just really throws an enormous wrench into our American industrial complex, our economic system, and several areas are affected by this. And we really have nothing to do but throw our hands up and try to make up for the lost time, okay? Our creativity and our research and development and our overall innovative spirit had lapsed, okay? We had gotten a bit complacent, per se, collectively as an industrial complex and as an economy, and we had a lot of ground to make up. Unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of economic distress that's going to be experienced by many Americans throughout the rest of this decade as the government tries to enlist certain policy, but then can't get certain policy passed because politics gets involved. But nevertheless, we're eventually going to get our way out of it, but the experience is going to be difficult. Gerald R. Ford is going to recommend the win strategy. We are going to win in regards to this economic struggle. We're going to whip inflation now, W-I-N, whip inflation now. How are you going to do that? Well, Ford effectively just championed the same directives of Herbert Hoover, okay? Self-reliance, volunteerism, and let's just try to pinch pennies and get by with, what we can. Continue to spend the money that you can spend, but we can be a little bit more frugal and we can make it through, all right? Both Ford and definitely Carter, after the fact, urged Americans to conserve. Don't be foolish, as they said. Don't be wasteful. Turn your thermostats down. Carpool. There was a lowering of the speed limit because studies showed that driving at a certain speed was going to, get more bang for your buck in terms of fuel costs. We see a push for diesel energy, and there's also, a big push for nuclear energy. But then we have the 3 Mile Island crisis later on in the decade, and there's a big anti-nuclear push by the time Carter is leaving office in 1980. Overall, though, a lot of these conservation efforts have little impact on the overall energy demands and on the overall ability of our economy to get up and get going once again. The inflation numbers were just too high. Unemployment numbers become too high. There are some difficult decisions that are made by Jimmy Carter. He's actually going to cut government spending. This is interesting because he's a Democratic president. Okay, Democrats typically aren't for government cuts in spending. They're not for lowering taxes. Gerald R. Ford effectively can't get certain policy enlisted that could have gotten this thing going sooner because he's a Republican president with a Democratic-controlled House of Representatives. So not really going to get a lot of policy passed. Politics is involved. Carter, on the other hand, is a Democratic president that tries to do some things that maybe a Republican would do. He gets some resistance from his Democratic colleagues on Capitol Hill, but effectively Carter does cut government spending. Okay, this is going to effectively adjust tax rates. Okay, so now he can potentially push for tax breaks for certain areas of the American economy and for certain individuals. Okay, because again, how do the governments get their money to spend? Through taxation, for the most part. He also deregulates certain areas of the American economy, most notably the areas of trucking and air travel. And he gets the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates. Now, this is interesting, okay? This is going to discourage borrowing, but the desire is that there's already such a stagnant force inside the economy that Americans aren't putting money into it, right? There's no free flow of cash. So it's not like people are going to, go out and borrow and start spending if interest rates are low. So he raises interest rates in hope to try to combat the inflation. That ultimately this is going to cause some of those market forces to work and bring inflation down. And lo and behold, that's going to start becoming the case by the early to mid 1980s. But Carter will no longer be the president to see that occur. Okay. That does it for the American response. Just a couple of slides there. All right. Does it for this short little subsection. Lots of information I'm throwing at you. I'm also going to link a video from John Green, the guys and gals at Crash Course. They do a good job of describing this. We'll come back to Carter and some of his efforts domestically to cure the ailing American economy in the late 1970s and a few subsections from now. But our next one, we're going to talk about the American society in general. How did Americans behave? What was their mindset? What was the attitude of the American electorate during this difficult time economically, financially? And that's to come next class period, right? Or next time you visit me via video. Oh, cool. All righty. That's all I got.